Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon to all of you. Today we have this webinar on how to raise case studies, data driven case studies. And we are really thankful to all of you for joining us. To introduce our resource person, Ms. Aparajita Prasad. She is an IIM Ahmedabad alumna. She is a renowned corporate leader and subject matter expert with over 15 years of experience in business research, strategic consulting, and startup advisory across this globe. As Accenture, TCS, EvalueServe, Hydric, and Struggles are some of the companies that she has worked with. Later, she joined a few startups and contributed to their success. She has the experience of leading huge teams and heading business units. Her experience spans across strategy, business, research, analytics, and consulting. Currently, she is the founder and director of MetaConnect Consulting. She is an investor and mentor to startups and on advisory board of many incubators and accelerators. She takes many leadership training sessions and is a well-known speaker and panelist at major events. Thank you so much, ma'am. We are really grateful you took out the time to join us, and we're really looking forward to this event. Over to you.
Tanya. Thanks, Tanya. Thanks for introducing me so well. And thanks to all of you for organizing this, Pavitra, Jatin, all those, the entire team who has been in touch with me. I understand it takes a lot of effort to, put together an event to get, in place. So kudos to you guys, being in your final and pre-final years of your graduation. You guys are doing pretty well. And trust me, these are the kind of enthusiasm that would take you leaps and bounds when you go ahead and get onto the real challenges of your career and life. So,
Thank you so much.
most welcome, and I'm really happy and look forward to interacting with the students here. And because you guys bring a lot of energy and new thoughts to the world, so it's always wonderful to interact with the students community. I think we started a few minutes late. So, before getting into much into all these, let's now get onto our topics. And that would be a good valuing everyone's time. So, let me first, I have PPT for you guys, which I would walk through. And I would also do some of the, PPT is just a base skeletal that, we adhere to the concepts that I want to share. I would be talking more about with the experience of the things. And towards the later part of the session, we would be picking all the queries. So feel free to drop all your questions, queries in the chat box. Tanya, you need to enable my screen sharing.
Yes, ma'am. Just a
Thank
second.
you.
Dipanshu will do it.
Okay. So, we would take the queries and questions towards the end, and just to set the stage. Tanya already introduced me, but I would give you. It's done. Okay. Let me try again. No, it's still saying host disabled participant screen sharing. So by the time we fix this, I would talk about the journey and early days of my life and career when I was a student, and the kind of support or less support we used to get those days. So I briefly did my BSc and MSc in biotechnology before getting on to the management, like you guys are doing engineering, and then many of you would be pursuing management. I'm sure about it. So that's the life cycle that we all go through. So when I was doing my masters in biotechnology from Bangalore University before getting on to the MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. So when we were towards the end of placements and things like that back then, some 20 years ago, so we never had these kind of support or the awareness or people help. I think you have given me the rights. Yes, perfect. So we never had these kind of placement cell, these awareness how to ease these things and stuff like that. And trust me, these are wonderful things to create awareness about the opportunities, kind of things you guys can do, and where you need to polish yourself or what is your forte, to understand all those small nuances. So wonderful efforts by the placement team and the entire team at Maharaja Agrasen Technical Institutes. Wonderful job, guys. And I request everyone to leverage the opportunity that is being given. This is not कि यार time pass में ये webinar कर ले रहे नहीं. You guys are blessed. You guys are privileged that you have an opportunity to learn these things. I wish these things existed in our times. So maximize, take the benefit of these things, take part in these things, and also, like it is said, it's a wonderful opportunity to network, to see what's happening in the world. So Tanya, my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it's visible.
Perfect, perfect. So now like it's said, let me minimize this. Yeah. So like it is said for the today's topic, that it is what we are Nikhil, please don't scratch my screen. So how to ace data driven case studies. Correct. So now first, before getting into the entire crux of things, how to ace that case study, first let's try and understand quickly what is a case study and where and how they are used. Right. So case study, it's a detailed analysis, structured around any important event, group, business, situation, or anything, right? It's a detailed, fragmented analysis, in-depth analysis to reach to a conclusion, to understand a problem. It could be either ways, either to understand a problem, there also we do a deep diving, or if we already know what is the problem, then we understand, dissect, and fragment it to reach to a possible conclusion to it. So it is a very in detailed analysis, in depth analysis done in step by step manner to reach a conclusion. It is used to demonstrate concept in a practical setting. Right. When we talk about this practical and theoretical setting, guys, case study model, these days it's becoming very uh, famous and very incorporated in management consulting or management institute to teach by case study model, or case study pedagogy that we call it. Why is this shift being given from a typical theory thing to a case study model? We need to understand, appreciate that first, before, until unless we value something, we would not like to do or master that art. So what happens is, when you say you're doing a management and you are doing some theory aspect about it, you may learn, you may write it, and you may forget it. What happens in a case study model, when it is a life story, when it's a life situation, what has happened in a business world, or in any technical world as well. So the entire journey, when you go through with the relevant set of example, people, cases, situations, which has a name, then you can relate more to it, then you can understand more to it. Also, in your study of 2 years of management, you cannot gauze through, and when you have so many papers to study, you cannot gauze through the 20-25 years for one example. So now what happens, to give you an added advantage, to give you an added edge to understand the entire scenario, we pick up these case studies. See, now when we talk about case study on Razorpay after it became a unicorn, these days everyone is talking about startups, how to be successful, and those things. What happens is, now when we say let's do a case study on Razorpay, we would walk through the or understand the entire life cycle, what has gone through it, and then you will learn a lot more than just one theory ki microfinance में क्या होना चाहिए, marketing strategy क्या होनी चाहिए, या MIS maintenance कैसे होना चाहिए. When you go through the entire case study, what challenges they face, who were the people behind it, what were the practical smartness they did to overcome the situation or to rise to a level, that's where your practical holistic knowledge or understanding of the world starts to build in. Correct. So that's one of the most important thing, that's most important way to look into a case study. Now when I talk about the case studies, what is the purpose behind? Like I said, two things: either to uh, get deep dive and understand what is the problem, or do a fragmented segmental analysis to reach to a conclusion. We normally do case studies of, again, two kinds. One, it is like, the case study to understand, learn. And the other kind of case studies that you would be, since you guys are in the third and fourth years of your engineering, that you would come across in ways when you would go for your job interviews. We do share a lot of case studies with students to solve them. The basic intent for these case studies is, you may not reach to the conclusion, you may not understand the entire thing correctly, but what is seen there is how you approach to a problem. What is your thought process, how you fragment that, how you solve that, how you reach onto it. Okay. So that's the other way. So the case studies, how are case studies used? So now the first point, building a case studies uh, is used to solve or taken by professor institute, like I said, about any of the success, be it razor pay, make my trip, paytm, successful stories or revival stories, or restructuring concept, that's used by institution and professors to give you the entire journey and knowledge of what has happened in, say, 20, 50, 30 years. So that's one way of looking at case studies. And the second is solving a case study which is taken by students or industry professionals, where get onto and do how the thought process of results would happen. So, like I said, the first part takes care of analysis of the entire segment, and the second part gets into the solution part of it, that how you would solve it. Because in the first case, what has already been done, there is a solution. वहां तो हो चुका है success कि एक problem था एक company में, it was in a lockdown, and how they revived it. So that's already done. We are doing a case study to learn from it. On the contrary, the second is when you are solving a case study, that's where we look into the solution of it. We have a data set, we have a set of problems, we have to reach to a conclusion. That's the journey, and that's where we utilize all our brains. So, two aspects of it, one is the learning and one is the solution. One is digging into what was the problem and best possible methods to reach to a conclusion, and the second, where the thought process is to be built. So, these are basically the two things where case studies are very broadly used. Now, when we,
Sorry to interrupt you, ma'am. Would you
yeah,
please make Pavitra the co-host, because there are people in the waiting room and he has by mistake made you the host. So it will interrupt you if you keep adding more people. So can you please make
okay.
Pavitra the co-host?
Now, where would I get that option? You need to tell me just a second. Mm, mm, mm.
In the participants, when you go to his name, probably and in some option it would be saying make a co-host.
Okay, whom? Whom do you want me?
Pavitra.
Pavitra, where is Pavitra? PQR. Make host, right?
Yeah.
Would that take away my screen sharing?
Is there an option to say make a co-host or just make host?
No, it's just giving me an option. Make host.
Okay, so you make him the host and he'll give you the sharing rights back.
Okay. Do you want to change the host to Pavitra? Yes. Let me know if my screen is still visible. If it is, then there's no issue. We will go forward.
Yeah, the screen is still visible. Just try
Perfect.
to go to the previous slide so that we know that it's also moving.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah, it's working.
Perfect. Perfect. That saves
Thank
our
you so
job.
much. Yeah.
So yes, so we talked about the two segments or the uses of the case studies. Now when we know that, what is the beauty of these case studies and the two ways where they are used, now some of the common features across these case studies,
Rana
let
Lakdae, Yara bin Kakda,
can
Yara
we
bin
all get
Kakda.
people mute? Please mute everyone. Perfect. So common features across case studies, the first one is concerns a set of group. The group or the sample size could be, the data, people, events, whatever they are. There has to be some specific ways. It aims at testing the concepts, all the theoretical concepts. When you would go for an interview and you're given a case studies, so a case study would aim to test all your theoretical concepts. How, like I said, how you approach a problem, what are the steps involved, what are your analytical thinking built on. Next, it would involve a lot of data. When we talk about, these could be given to you in any sense. These could be spreadsheet, excels, huge data, or they could also be given to you in some format of reading material, from where you need to pick out the data, you need to pick out the relevant data. And guys, it's very important to pick the and highlight the correct data. There are times when you would be given things just to get confused. So, looking at, wow, these are the numbers, these are the data points, you may not need all the data points. So you have to be very important, intelligent enough to pick the right data sets. And the last point here is refers to existing research in the field. So when you are building your knowledge in approaching a case study, which involves the data or testing your concepts, you also need to refer to the existing research in the field. Say, for example, if you have given something in a, I would say, these days we are, going through the pandemic. So if it's some information or data is given to you about vaccine development, so there could be a lot of patient data, response data, and those kind of things given to build on a case study model of the solution. So it may not just end with the set of data that you have given. You may have to do some bit of secondary research to understand that segment as well, right? And when I talk about secondary research is all those information that you can gather from Google or the databases, which are the reliable sources, not from any sources. वो reliable sources से ही information जो आप gather कर रहे हो, those are the secondary research. So when you are handling those data sets, you also need to know and refer to the existing research in that field कि वहाँ क्या हो रहा है, किस basis पे आप model अपना बनाइएगा. Now let's go a little deeper and step by step as to how to solve a case study, right? Because that's more important to us as students in a final and pre-final year, where soon we would be going out for a job interviews. So most of you guys would be given a case study to solve. So the first thing, and I would request you all to, there are a lot of these case studies available online. Take them, practice them. It would make you a lot more confident. Right? So the first step in solving a case study is examining the case study thoroughly. This is exactly what I was saying a while ago. There would be a lot of information, a lot of data that would be given to you, which may not be relevant, which may be there just to confuse you, which may be there just to occupy your mind. Because, say, for example, if you're given 1 hour to solve a problem, and you have so much data, you would be lost in thinking only. And that is where we would be assessing you, how analytical you are, how smart you are to pick the correct data in the given stipulated time. So that's very important, to examine the case study thoroughly. You have to take down your notes. You have to highlight the key facts, underline key problems, right? So how would you pick the important data points? Take notes. It's always important. These generation these days, you have forgotten how to use a pen and a pencil, but that's okay. Even if on a system, take down your notes, key point, highlight, underline, make sure what you have to read, so that after 5 minutes of gauzing through, which paragraph, which data point, which data set you have to pick. You don't have to go through it again and again. So examine the case thoroughly. Also understand what is the exact problem statement. There could be same data set given to you, but there could be different problem statement given to your friend sitting next to you. So from the same question data set, from the same amount of questions given to you, there could be different way that you have to solve. So understand your problem as well, segment your problem, and then look back to your notes and the highlighted key fact. That's the first most important thing. Examine the case study, case thoroughly. Because जब अगर प्रॉब्लम ही आप सही से नहीं समझोगे, तो सोल्यूशन जो भी इंटायर मॉडल आप बिल्ड करोगे नेक्स्ट स्टेप्स में, दैट वुड गो हेवर्ड. right? Many of you would have done that interesting game that we used to play, जिसपे लिखा होता है कि कौन कितना क्विकली ये 10 क्वेश्चंस कर सकता है, एंड फर्स्ट स्टेप इज रिटन रीड ऑल द क्वेश्चन, and we just start doing the questions, and the last question says you don't have to solve any question, correct? And that's the way we check whether the person has read it or not. So again, that's very important to read the instruction, to examine the case thoroughly, so that आपको पता हो आपका exact question क्या है. Step 2, next, focus on your analysis. So when I'm talking about focus on your analysis, step 1 में जब हमने अपने concept को, अपने problem को, अपने problem statement को अच्छे से समझ लिया है, and we have highlighted our key data point, key data sets, now we are trying to fragment the issue step by step manner में, जहां से हम लोग अपनी model बनाएंगे जिससे solution पे आएंगे. So now to focus on your analysis, what you need to do is identify first 2 to 4 core problems. उस डेटा सेट में, say for example, let's take an example. One of my very vague statement that I asked in interviews a lot of times is, say for example, on a Wednesday afternoon 12 o'clock, how many people are buying white shirts in my nearby mall? You would say, what a random statement that is. But no, that's a case study. That is a case study. That and see how many data points I have given you. On a Wednesday afternoon 12 p.m., how many people are buying white shirt from my nearby mall? Now if you have to analyze this statement to do a, and answer for this has to be a specific number. I have not given any number here, but the answer to this question is a specific number, and it happens. See how it would happen. So now when we are analyzing this, so identify the 2 to 4 core problem. What are the 2 to 4 key segment that you would put in here? Say for example, if we are in Delhi, now the first broad line you would put across would be the entire population of Delhi. Then you would fragment it into the demographic breakup, age wise. Then you would, how many males, females, how many working people. Again, give due importance to the white shirt. Who wears a white shirt? Importance on a Wednesday, that is a working day में 12 बजे, who would go to the mall? So all these have certain relevance. You have to build and understand that एक भी point हवा में नहीं दिया गया, and based on that, you would have to find out 2 to 4 core problem, because otherwise you would go hayward in all the directions. So pick those 2-4 core problems कि यहाँ पर टारगेट अगर वेंसडे कर रहे हैं, दैट मीन्स वी आर टारगेटिंग व्हाइट शर्ट कर रहे हैं तो वर्किंग क्लास या फिर स्टूडेंट. सो स्टूडेंट में कितने यूनिफॉर्म व्हाइट होंगे, या वर्किंग मेन में कितना परसेंट पॉपुलेशन हमारा वर्किंग मेन होगा जो व्हाइट शर्ट्स वाले होंगे, राइट? सो ऑल दोज हैव टू बी आइडेंटिफाइड. Why do they exist? Next on your analysis would be why am I now I'm talking about my nearby mall. Again, मेरी buying power of the customer is now the people who go to the malls and not from the standalone stores, right? So you need to also break down your analysis on each of the point why it is said that. Why I am saying it's on Wednesday, weekend पे ज्यादा लोग shopping जाएंगे, weekdays में कम जाएंगे. So why? Again, 12 o'clock. What does it mean by 12 o'clock? That means lunch hour के बीच में शायद कोई निकल के जा रहा है, right? So every statement that is made, why do they exist? Why is that said? So that there has to be a chain of thought that you can bring from there. Also, when you're doing, it has to make sense of the impact of the problem, because a lot of time these case studies are done to identify the market share, or what would be the target population who are doing these kind of things, who are the impacted players. So when we do that, like I said, it has to be based on the data that you have, but not limited to it. You would also do some of your research related to the field. So when we talk about these things, it would also give you the other aspect, what is the impact of these problems, so that based on that impact of the problem, you would base your assumptions forward in the case study modeling. Also, there are who is responsible for them. In many of the cases, this parameter would also be very important to understand who is responsible for the trigger. Say again in the white shirt model, why do you want to buy the trigger white shirt? उतने अगर सप्लायर साइड में इतने जॉब्स या इतने वर्किंग पीपल इस सर्विस क्लास पीपल उस लोकेलिटी में है या नहीं, right? So from both the ends, from the buyer end and the supplier end, you would be looking at the problem. What is the responsible or what is the trigger for that problem? And then you would identify two for root causes. Why it's happening? Okay, मेरे पास तो white shirt था, maybe it's torn. An average life cycle of a white shirt, say for example, is 2 to 3 years, right? So all these parameters you would incorporate, and in a modeling you would also put that across in the horizontals and verticals when you're breaking that number, when you're breaking that data set, right? So that is the next step here. Identify 2 to 4 root causes of that problem. The third step in when you are doing some case study on a data-based modeling, that is understanding of the data. When we talk about understanding data, like I said in the first segment, you need to be very well uh, adapted to playing with those data sets. कौन से इंपॉर्टेंट है, कौन से इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, किनको आगे लेके जाना है, किनको वहीं पे छोड़ देना है. So also is the entire data set giving you some story, some concept, big Excel sheet that is given to you, can you see some pattern to it? What are the cause and effect of those pattern? Are they say for example अगर वैक्सीन ड्रग ट्रायल की बात करें, सो आर देयर एनी साइड इफेक्ट्स के ज्योमेट्रिक प्रोग्रेशंस हम देख रहे हैं, या सीवियरिटी के देख रहे हैं, व्हाट एवर डेटा सेट आर वी बिल्डिंग, या एपीआई मॉलिक्यूल्स मिलने के पैटर्न देख रहे हैं, इज देयर अ पैटर्न दैट यू कुड सी, and what are the causes and effect of that pattern, because that would take you a long way in building the modeling. Is the data coherent with the impact? Now that is the sanity check कि हमारा जो data आ रहा है और जो impact की बात करें, does that make any sense? Is there some sanity logic behind it, or these could be two unrelated fact जो देख के हमारे पास एक solution भी दिख रहा है, problem भी दिख रहा है, but हो सकता है इनका triggers कुछ और हो. So are these data coherent? Are they making any sense together? Is there a sanity check to it? That's very important in understanding your data patterns. Step 4 here would be uncover possible solution. Now, when you're doing, the case studies, review your entire reading, do the discussions, do the outside research, and then reach on to 2 3 best solution of the problem. Say for example, if I talk about that there has been huge losses in the during the pandemic for a firm, and you are doing some data analysis into the kind of losses that you have seen, कितने की loss हुई, कहाँ पे operational crisis आया, कहाँ से supply chains के funds में loss हुए. So now if I am giving you a case to solve it, so you would have to come up with different kind of possible solution, best possible solution. You could come up and say that, maybe if you increase your credit time with the suppliers, आपकी cash fund flow बनी रहेगी. Maybe if you try doing some low hanging fruit, छोटे छोटे projects, आपको ज़्यादा cash flow आने लगेंगे. Maybe if you cut down on the cost cutting, there could be the problem of funds solved. So there could be multiple solution to the existing problem. And whenever you are doing a case study, always come up with a possible set of 2 3 best solution out of it, because that is where the top management would start working on those solutions. And say for example, even if one of your model fails, you have a backup plan. So ye do teen best solution is always good to come or be prepared with. Now in the step 5, drafting the best solution. Now you have concluded with 2 3 best solution, but still you would have to give to a final recommendation of one solution to go ahead at that point. So drafting the best solution, you need to consider strong supporting evidence, and that evidence would be from the data. We say this, that in God we trust and everyone else please bring numbers. So beyond numbers, beyond data, you cannot validate any statement. So whatever the best solution that you're putting forth, consider what and how you can support it with data. strong supporting evidence. Then based on that evidence, what are the pros and cons of it? There is nothing which comes without a side effect. So you have to also validate what are the pros and cons. You have to be aware of it. मैप आउट द इंटायर इम्पैक्ट यूजिंग द डेटा, उससे डेटा का इम्पैक्ट निकालिए. एंड देन अगेन द लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट, इज द सोल्यूशन रियलिस्टिक. ये सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट होता है सैनिटी चेक जिसको हम कहते हैं, कि आप किसी भी सोल्यूशन की बात कर रहे हैं, इवन इफ द डेटा इज सेइंग दैट दिस इज द बेस्ट थिंग, is there any practical nuances which would stop it? Because end of the day the data is again machine, it's facts, it's figures. In reality there could be something which may, whatever the data we built say in March, we never knew ki April May there would be a lockdown and an entire model will crash. So we cannot take forward those assumption or case studies of the solution in April. So that was the entire question where it all boiled around, is the solution realistic? No, everything changed then, even if the data supported it. So we had to redo the entire thing again. So last but not the least, very important step in drafting the best solution is doing the sanity check, or checking if the solution is realistic. Some of the tips that I would like to share here is, while going through with the case study model, always highlight your assumption, state and justify. Whatever case study you're solving, whatever assumptions you're doing, modeling you're building based on your data points, your secondary research, there would be some assumptions, right? State your assumptions. So even for example, if we pick some uh, data from some site, we would put across, state and justify which site are we putting, whether it's a reliable source or not. So highlight all the assumption. If we are ignoring some point, write it down as well, with an asterisk that this has been ignored because of this. So highlight and put forward all your assumptions and state and justify them. Also define boundaries, limiting your data set for accuracy. When we say define boundaries, it's very important. Say, for example, I will give you an example from my life and career. We were doing some modeling for uh, uh, Greater China, I would say, which included Hong Kong and Taiwan. And the entire modeling we did was based on just the Chinese data. So now, just at the last moment before getting to the client, we could see that, oh my God, this was the error, and the entire modeling would collapse. But then, the small thing, these limitations, these assumptions, these boundaries saves us. Limit your data set. Then we had to tell that, this is based on this data set. This is the a subset of this broader universe. So define where you are playing, define your boundaries. Like, for example, say for example this webinar, if we are conducting it with Maharaja Agrasen Institute, so we know who is our boundary, who is our target audience, right? So that, even for the data set, you need to understand, define your boundaries. Give, for example, highlight and give, for example, the managerial applications. Which concept did you apply? Which model did you use? In a lot of cases, modeling like SWOT analysis, pestle, portal, BCG matrix, whatever, you would learn these later in your life and career. Or even the smaller kind of things, that basic data set model, or looking into the few financial years, whatever the application concept that you have applied, mention that as well. Managerial application, which concept did you apply? And in the conclusion, there has to be a conclusive statement with the saying that this is the conclusion, why your solution solves the core problem. Because nobody would be reading or going through the entire bulk of information or data solution that you have provided. So a bottom line executive conclusion has to be there, which says conclusion, why your solution solves the core problem. So you need to mention that as well when you would be doing your case study. Also, while drafting your solutions, you need to keep in mind, you have to summarize your outcomes. You need to include your thesis. You need to keep it short and simple. That's very important, because the most important thing in everywhere in the world, in everything is keeping it simple, short and simple. Nobody is here to get into a complicated data. Agar complicated data aap doge mujhe, I would be lost, or I would be like mujhe nahi dekhna, right? So use simple keywords to gain traction. Us industry ka keywords kya hai, so that would bring in the attention of the audience there. In the solution segment, give due importance, the background, what are the relevant facts, set the screen, that's very important to set the stage right. Given the fact, say for example, if we are building a model of say 5 year of how some segment is growing, so we would give that, automobile segment, it was doing well for the last few years, but since the pandemic happened, this happened, right? We would not say that it's a collapsing model. We have to set the stage, how things were going. It's very important to give the entire facts and the historical background of the thing. Also, in the drafting the solution, demonstrate through research on your end. Like I said, you have to mention, you have to put those importance in your case studies, that be, say for example, I received some data and I'm incorporating that the CAGR of this industry is 6.3. CAGR is the compounded annual growth rate. So when we say that, we would also mention, based on a research or a data or a report published by so and so, the government, the consulting firms, right? So it gives more authenticity to your data points. So demonstrate through what research you have done to build those model. Also, your solution should be factual. Like I said, in God we trust, and everyone else has to bring numbers. So it should be factual, data driven, and case oriented. It has to be built across in different segments. While evaluating your case, you need to see what is working and what is not. This is again based on a lot of parameters and facts and figure. Whatever operating model you would be building, you would have to showcase that, since doing this would be the probable outcome. If you go for the other model, this would be the probable model outcome. So then you can compare, so what is working and what is not working, and then accordingly justify why this is happening. Divide the entire case into focus to make it more readable. If you are comparing the two solution, make it into side by side kind of a thing, or potential one, potential two, so that it is more readable and catchy. Always remember guys, presentation makes a lot of difference. Towards the end of your solution, whatever the proposed solution you guys are coming up with the case study, mention your solution. Like I said, there has to be a conclusive statement saying this is the conclusion, how you would justify it, what are the references you have taken, what are the concepts and data to support you have taken, from where, what are your sources, use some example, antidotes, keep it, there's no harm adding some bit of humor to things, even if it is very boring data. Remember, in case any of one of you are interested and have seen those presentations in parliament, even finance minister, they crack a lot of jokes, they put together shero sairi and stuff, while presenting the country's budget, those kind of things, because people do appreciate that. So use some bit of small funny notes, or things that people can relate to. So that's the way I would suggest that you should go ahead in the step by step manner when you play across with the kind of data. So case study is something where you start with the data, highlight the data, break them into different segments. Every statement is crucial, right? You discuss your proposed strategy, describe them step by step. Who should do it? Now when we are also talking in the conclusion, who should do it, who, the point of contact, or the person responsible for certain things, that has also to be maintained. uh, Add forecast, break even. Like I said, if you're opting for potential solution one, these would be the outcome. If you're opting for potential solution two, these could be the outcome. So add those break even, regression, forecast, whatever it is. So these were the quick brief that I wanted to bring forth to you guys. Before I take further questions, I think we have still 5 more minutes, to four. So I'm open for any and all the questions. Guys, any question? Do we have anything in the chat box? Pavitra?
Yes.
Yes, guys.
So
Let me know if you guys have any questions out there.
I think Vishal popped up a question in the chat box.
So yes, Vishal, we already tried with a example, right? But try doing it with buying a white shirt in a nearby mall in Delhi on a Wednesday at 12 p.m. That would be helpful. Do it for yourself. Break it down. Like I said, start from the population segment. We did that. So to reach to that number, Vishal, that's your job. I would not do it for you. We talked about it, how you would fragment it. Who are the people, who are the buying people, how are the demographic broken down, age wise, segment wise, student population, retired people, men, female, how many malls in your segment, how many offices in your segment, who are the people who wear a white shirt, who would be available at on a Wednesday 12 p.m. to do shopping, you know incorporate all those parameters from the population of Delhi, and then reach to a number and send that number to me. That's for your homework.
That was a great session, Aparajita. I think we got a lot of knowledge about how we can actually approach case studies and what exactly a case study is.
Yes. So, thanks, Pavitra, for inviting me here. Guys, in case you want to deep dive further into case studies, my only suggestion to you guys is practice, practice, and practice. So, another example I would give you, Vishal, that I ask a lot of time in interviews is how many of people would be, say, if I am at Sector 50 Noida, how many of men would be smoking cigarette right now? You would again say, what an absurd statement. No, it's an analytical question. So how would you break that forward? What is the population in Noida? What is the percentage of smokers in Noida? How many people reside in Sector 50? What is the per day consumption of cigarettes for them? So breaking down to all those analytical nuances would give you an approx number. So only way to build your mind in doing these is practice. So online, there are a lot of case studies available. Pick those and do it mentally, do it or with a piece of pen and paper, and practice yourself. These case studies are very important whenever you would go ahead for your job interviews as well. And then there are the other kind of case studies which we take into the MBA sessions, where we talk about the entire life cycle of journey, how things happen for a firm, how it was revived, what was the success story, and what are the learning parameters that comes out from them. Instead of just pouring in the theory behind things, we walk it through with the entire case study. So read about it, follow some of those Harvard Business Reviews cases, and do them, and that would make things a lot easier for you guys. Right?
So are there any last minute questions before we end up the session?
In case, guys, you come across with anything else even later, I'm very much reachable on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Aparajita Prasad, or you can follow our page, Beta Connect Consulting. A lot of things keep happening which are into the management consulting kind domain. Feel free to follow them, and I'm sure you guys